Okay, so like I said at the beginning or the end of the last video, we're going to talk in more detail in this video about levels and nodes. And we're going to go through it rather quickly for you. So I know you have a lot to do. So if you look in the back of the textbook on page 506, there is a definition for level. It says a structural device in a game or other interactive work. It is a section of the work akin to a chapter or an act. Each level has its own physical environment, characters, and challenges. Games may also be leveled in terms of degree of difficulty, with levels running from easy to difficult. Characters, too, can attain an increase in level in terms of their powers or skills. They are leveled up. And that sort of terminology is very popular in our culture these days. People talk about leveling up in all sorts of non-gaming environments because it's become so prevalent from the pervasiveness, the ubiquity of gaming in our lives. So you should be really familiar with the term of leveling. Now, nodes, on the other hand, probably not as familiar with in general, or if you have heard about it in the past, it's probably in a different context than how it's being used in digital storytelling. A lot of computer programmers will know about nodes specifically, or computer science majors. So if you have a previous definition of node in your mind, I would like you to at least listen to this definition and see if it conforms with or differentiates from that definition of node. Again, this is in your glossary on page 509. A design term sometimes used to indicate the largest organizational unit of a game, similar to a level or world, and sometimes used to indicate a point where a user can make a choice. Okay? So here at the end is how we're going to be using the term node in our class. Used to indicate a point where a user can make a choice. So you can see here on the annotations that certain gaming terms that were invented for the web show were brought together into the comic series and tie the game universes together. We talked about that, and but the term node is not used in this video web series, but it does come into factor in how they have structured their web series. And so I'm going to show you some examples of that so you can see how it works, okay? So real quick, just to re-emphasize what I've already said before, levels is a term that we're familiar with. We see it often in games, and it's used within the narrative arc of the guild in order to represent what this community of MMOGPRs are going through as they're working to level up within their games that they're playing online together within their guild. But the nodes, not referred to in the series, it's not referred to in their game. It's not important to their gaming at all, but it is important to the structural organization of the guild, the web series that we're watching, the transmedia web series that we're watching, okay? So I'm going to show you some examples here of nodes. Okay, so here in this screenshot, if you read the annotations, you're going to see an example of a node. And basically the annotation says, Codex and Zabu made a teaser trailer for Season 2. Click here to see a master version of all their takes. And the Guild does this frequently throughout the transmedia web series, specifically within the linear digital web series portion of the transmedia series altogether. And you remember you're going to need to be able to differentiate between the way those terms function. In that this is a digital medium right here, this web series, but it is linear, but it's a linear portion, part of a larger transmedia multi-platform series. So this linear portion still has nodes, and what's cool about that is that the nodes are embedded into the annotations, and then you can click on the nodes and you'll be led to other portions of the narrative. So basically, a node is a decision or action point within a series. And there are little markers that don't have the same emphasis to them that levels do within our particular context that we're talking about. So you can either decide to do one thing, which is continue to watch the narrative in a linear form, or you can take a little side route and choose the node and go off on a little tangent and then come back to this narrative later. So again, the node doesn't actually take you anywhere or advance you anywhere. It doesn't take you to the next level where you go from level 1 to level 2 to level 3 or 4, but you still have to make a decision. And so these little nodes are sprinkled out throughout this particular web series. Okay, so we also have in Chapter 7 the idea of a binary choice, and this would be an example of a binary choice. A binary choice means you either get to choose to do one thing or another. You've probably heard over and over again that computers are made out of ones and zeros. And basically what that means is that no matter where you go on a computer, you can either choose to turn something on or you can choose to turn something off. You're never actually given a third option. You can say, yes, I want to do this, or no, I don't want to do this. And that's called a binary choice. Yes or no, or if and then. And these algorithms are built into computers, which are mathematical equations that run our computers. Even though they're extremely complicated, they always come down to whether, yes, you want to do this, or no, you do not want to do this. And these if-then algorithms are what's called Boolean logic. And Boolean logic basically means that you have to be very precise in what your options are. And like when we're at a stop sign, for example, we can decide to stop, and then hopefully we decide to go again. But it isn't as if you get to stop, and then you make up a right, and then you get to choose not to stop ever again. And you have 17 choices. The way that a computer works is this similar sort of binary choice. And what I think is really fascinating is how this kind of computer logic was really starting to enter into its heydays in the 1970s and the 1980s. And it was starting to become very popularly available outside of this enclosed scientific communities, the mathematical scientific communities, where choose your own adventures became popular. And there's a title, or it's a name for a particular genre of books. And apparently Felicia Day, who starred in and wrote and directed this web series, read literally every choose your own adventure book that was in her aunt's small library. And when these books became popular, it was also the same time when new media theory was also taking off, and people were trying to explore the different ways that computers could change the way that we tell stories, both about ourselves, to ourselves, and choose your own adventures. As you know, you have to choose if you want to do this, and then I'm not going to do that, and if I choose option B, then I don't get to do option C, and if I choose option A, then I don't get to do option B. But each time you make one of these plan choices, the additional choices sort of spiral out of control. And every time you choose one path over another, it then opens up to you additional choices, but also closes off to you others. And this is something that people that work with digital stories and transmedia stories are constantly grappling with and thinking about and trying to figure out how to use these binary choices to our advantage between telling the story and also the story you want to tell, but also not confusing your audience members. So I wanted you to think about that as continuing to read these chapters and you're continuing to view the guild. And you also probably played games that follow this logic. And so now this is all coming up into how we think about, and actually instead of just in addition to enjoying the guild, we're going to think about how the structure was put together by Felicia Day and her team in order to give us a certain amount, enough nodes to choose from, and also, or not. Okay? So keep that in mind as we go forward, and I will be posting your assignment to the Moodle here very soon.